Okay, it is 5 o'clock. Will you please rise and join me for the pledge of the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, we'll begin this evening with our open forum. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and address the board at this time? Okay, we'll move on to celebrating our successes, and we have Teresa Burgundy here with us tonight, and talking about the Perpich Grant, and Mary Jo.
Well, this is a very easy certificate of appreciation from the school district to give tonight. It's to Teresa Burgundy, who has been a music teacher for 26 years with the district, loved by every single one of her students, amazing music teacher, but even though she retired this past May, she continues to represent Albert Lee. And she is our leader in all of southern Minnesota for the Perpich Grants. And I knew she was still representing Albert Lee, but at a big state conference for music, they talked about who kind of some of the leaders were. And there was Teresa's name, and it was, what district is she from? And I thought, oh, what's she going to say? Because she's retired. And she's still representing Albert Lee. It's at Albert Lee School District. So I am eternally grateful for this woman who I have worked with for many years. Honored today to give her a certificate of appreciation from the district for her music leadership, but also for bringing the Perpich funding to Greater Minnesota, particularly a leader in Albert Lee, but all of southern Minnesota. So thank you to Teresa. You can say a few words if you want.
Teresa, do you want to give us a few words, or? Okay.
Oh, yeah, we can. Sure. That
Okay.
works for me.
Okay. I'm not part of that. I'm going to go sit back down.
Well, I'm going to just try and keep it pretty simple. I actually had a slideshow that I used previously, tweaked it to kind of do some updates as to what we are doing this year with our grant. So some of you may not realize what is Perpich Southeast Regional Outreach. We've been doing it for a lot of years. Do you want me to click? Yeah. Okay. Albert Lee has been with Perpich ever since I have been part of Albert Lee. It's gone from Quality Teaching Network. It's just expanded. And then with the Minnesota statutes, they said we need professional development. It's not a student activity, it's professional development. So that has changed our focus of how we use the money. At this point, we're trying to expand not just 4 regional centers to possibly 6 or 7. So, because right now, I've had people coming from St. Paul to some of our workshops. I've had people from Spring Grove. If you're familiar with the way eastern part of the state, it's as far away as you can get. So, I guess what we started out doing was a survey monkey to find out what do our teachers need. And it goes in order. Curriculum development is what our fine arts people said we don't get enough quality staff development in that area. So you can see according to the slide what are the areas they would like. And my emails that go out, thank goodness for Nikki at our building and all of our other support staff that I go to, it goes out to 46 school districts, which is 297 emails. Some get tossed back to us because the teachers are no longer there, or their firewall just bumps us right out, so. The grant monies distributed go according to the proposals that have to be written up prior, and then they're approved by their board. And you can see on the right-hand slide that Wendy Barden has been one of ours that we've continued to ask her back because she has such good information. We did an arts camp just this year, just kind of as a trial, and everybody that attended said, let's do that again. It was fun, it was informative, and we really got a lot out of it. And they wanted to come in the summertime. They did not want to come during school time. As we know, subs are a problem. We can't get enough subs. They didn't want to have to plan to be gone. So that I thought that was kind of cool. This is Dr. Wendy Barden that we have brought in. She's nationally known. The first year that we were kind of tracking where we were going with it was last year, and 7 districts in our southeastern region took part, 29 teachers. Our goal was to increase the districts that are participating, and you can see that we have 11 districts that are going to be coming January 31st. Still 29 people, but we're starting to get out to more districts. Wendy's, I guess her focus mainly is how do we use that data in our fine arts. She comes with outcomes for our workshops. This is just kind of a little bit of a taste of what she will give us on January 31st, but she will also ask the teachers prior to coming, what do you want as an outcome? What are you hoping to gain? This is just one of our teachers taking some of his information and taking it back to the classroom. Our district has really been well represented at our workshops, so I think that's a big statement. And I think Mary Jo mentioned that in October, we were at an Arts Schools Network, and it was the national conference. And it wasn't in Minneapolis this year, so Perpich did take part in it. I guess the presentation that we had discussed all of our strategies that we were going to be using in order to get more districts involved. How were we going to reach out to those spring groves, those littler communities that really don't have a lot for staff development. Do you have any questions?
How long are you going to keep up?
Actually, I didn't think they were going to let me do it because the Perpich board was saying if you retire, then somebody else will take over. Well, I just approached them with, I said, I've started getting this rolling. I kind of like to see it through to get those goals up, reaching out to more districts. So I asked our administration, and they were okay with it. So I guess I'll continue as long as the grant is there. It's not a guarantee. So.
Thank you, Teresa, and thanks for everything you have done in the past for our district. And I didn't realize you were that old to be there 26 years, was it?
Well, 26 years here, 10 years in Austin.
Oh, okay.
So you know how old I am.
Yeah, we've known each other for a long, long time. Okay, moving on to tonight's agenda. Is there approval for this agenda tonight?
So moved.
Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second? Okay, a motion and a second. All those in favor of the agenda signify by
Mr.
saying
Chair,
aye.
do we need to change to amend to remove 8.1 since Teresa just went with that? Or will we be?
Okay, we'll just leave it in there. Okay, any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor of tonight's agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 6 are consent items. Is there some motions there?
Move to approve.
Okay, is there a second? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the consent items signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to reports. We'll begin with the superintendent report.
So, tonight, go ahead and move it, Ashley. We had a discussion in December on the activities code and some potential changes to that, and I recommended that we take it back to the high school administration and our coaches to take a look at. So I know that they met earlier this month on this issue, and I know you have a follow-on meeting planned, and I will be asking the Afton and Mark to come to the board and give us an update on where we're at up here in February. So I would expect a recommendation at that point as far as any changes or modifications to the current code. So it's a good opportunity for us to study. It's been in existence for, well, since when you were on the board previously, Ken. So I think now is a good time to take a good look at it. Facilities Task Force last week, Mark and Afton had their second Facilities Task Force, and they recapped the information that was presented to the group from December, and then they presented plans for the updated Hammer Complex and Halverson Elementary. You know, a couple of the points that were drawn out in the meeting is, you know, when the Hammer football complex was built in the 60s, there were no girls' athletics, and so it really wasn't designed for the needs of our students here in 2018. There's Title IX issues between softball and baseball. There's ADA issues, and we'll be talking more about this as we move forward. So the other piece of that is the Halverson Elementary in that part of town, and the fact that we need more gym space in the community. And you know, part of the concept with the Halverson project would be you know, a community space, and so after the meeting there were some discussions that took place, and you know, what are some things we can do there with a new gym at Halverson. You know, we have community education here at Brookside where they use the Rock Gym, and we have also within the city, we've got Park and Recreation who does different things for us at the ice rinks in the winter and summer programs in the summer. So I think between community ed and Park and Rec with the city, I think we could do some unique programming with the additional space there at Halverson Elementary. Also, the task force, we mentioned the fact that we're looking at a potential for a May 8th election. And once again, there are a couple financial benefits that would go forth with a May election. One being, since May is pretty short term here, we have a much better idea on what the proposed bond rate would be. And we also have a better handle on what the construction costs would be. If we were to wait to go later in the fall with the general election, our construction manager sees an increase of about 3% a year on cost as the industry average. So if we have a November election, we will not see any construction begin until probably the spring of 2020, which will make the project more expensive. So that is kind of why you're hearing the administration really looking at a May election from the financial angle for the district. And that's what our advisors are telling us. Got some great feedback today from our Well at Work clinic. In 2017, we had a combined total between labs and office visits of 1,956 visits, and a cost savings to the user of $186 per visit, which saved the insurance plan for our district $364,000. So by the cost utilization savings there, they figure that's what it would cost. It would cost $186 more per visit to go elsewhere than to our Well at Work clinic, when you look at the expense of us running the clinic. So huge cost savings for the insurance plan for the district, which we are hopeful will translate into better premiums as we move forward here. So I think that's a win all around for the school district there. Last thing today, and I didn't find out about this till this afternoon, but unfortunately I missed a visit at Sibley today where we had Jack Morris, Dan Gladden, Paul Molitor, and some of our newer twins come and do a twins caravan to Sibley Elementary. So it was considered a private event, and I guess it was so private the superintendent didn't get to know about it. So anyhow, but a great day at Sibley on all accounts, and having some of the Hall of Famers from the Twins show up at Sibley Elementary. So that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the school board reports. Neil, you want to start us off, please?
Well, Ellie and I, not to steal any of her fire, but we were speakers at a Story Theater production, and so we were invisible for a while. And that was fun. Ellie did a great job. I discovered that she lives in a place called No Man's Land, which she might explain. Anyway, the obvious thing to report is the MSBA conference that we attended last week, and it was wonderful, and I'm sure the rest of you will agree. The two main speakers, Mark Lindquist and Manny Scott, were very inspirational and had great messages to present. And I wish, I know Ken and I talked about this on the way home, I wish we could afford to have those people speak to our staff, our students, you know, and ideally the whole community, because man, it was awesome. The conference was like so many other conferences. I used to go to the Minnesota Council of Teachers Mathematics Council, and it's like, you know, a kid in a candy store, because you have all these wonderful opportunities to visit various venues where you encounter subjects that are dear to all of us now, at the time as a math teacher and currently as a board member. And I'm not going to go into any great detail. That would take forever. But I'll just run down a list of the topics that I encountered. Went to a show and tell, which was part of the exhibits, where various schools would have examples of some of the things that they're doing. And a couple of them caught my eye. One of them was geometry through construction, where students built a small, very small house and used that experience as a method of satisfying some of their geometry standards. One other, I forget what school it was, but they had a flex time. They took 8 minutes out of each period, 2 days a week, and that generated 40-minute blocks of time where students and staff could investigate everything from basket weaving to yoga, or, you know, any number of subjects that the students had indicated that they were interested in, and staff. Roundtable, similar to that, but where the conference members would visit tables that were set up where specific topics were discussed. I encountered 3 of them, 2 of them at least. One had to do with booster clubs and the benefits and some of the dangers, pitfalls of boosters, and any other fundraising organization that's attached to your district. And the other was another topic. I always gravitate towards those things that I like. The other topic was integrating agriculture into core curriculum, which I've been doing for many years. Then the workshops, they were the big box of time that we visited. And again, the frustration was we could only visit 3 of them. And the 3 that I picked, I see Kevin out there. I sent you an email, Kevin, on a result from one of the workshops that I went to. It was called Math Mindsets, with just beautiful, wonderful ideas about teaching math. Second was work-based learning opportunities. That was the presenters here. One of them was from Mankato School District, and the other dealt with teachers' retirement, which is of interest to districts lately because there's a possibility, if the legislature doesn't come through, that districts could be expected to pick up costs that are necessary to keep that program going. That's it.
I also attended the conference, and as Neil said, I enjoyed the speakers as well. They were very motivational and really did help us look through a different lens than we might normally be looking. I also stopped by the show and tells with the tiny house construction, and that was very interesting. It satisfies the geometry requirement plus an elective credit. So, and then they were going to try to sell the house to help fund future programs of that sort. That was I think it's a great idea to combine math with an application, whether it's a hands-on application or programming. We've talked about that kind of thing for math. And also the flex time schedule, the 2 40-minute periods a week that Neil was talking about. They could be for whatever the student interests are, or they could be just for homework catch-up, but they can also be for remedial work. The teacher can also request that a student comes and meets with them during that time to give them that extra student support that they need. So that was, I thought, a really great idea. And also lots of good programs like the academic decathlon always sounds interesting to me, and those students were saying how much they learn from that, even more than the classroom. One of the workshops I went to was from Stillwater Schools, and it was social emotional learning framework. And their school district, their board, took 2 years, and they met for a half a day every 2 months to create this framework. And so they put out a lot of effort. I think that other districts could probably take and mold for their own, but they had, the impetus behind that was they had lost 3 students to suicide in 3 years. And I think it's important for any school district to support the social emotional learning, and we're heading that way with some of our governing statements that we have too. But they have a really good framework, I think, that it helps children in early childhood and elementary through high school. And some of the programs we already have going, like Link Crew, we have Freshman Academy type things. Some things I've heard about but have always sounded interesting, like AVID, those kind of things. And then there were other programs that I had never heard before, like BAR. It stands for Building Assets, Reducing Risks. And they have a wellness center. Their health courses focus on mental, emotional health and coping strategies and resources. And I think those are good resources for all of our students to have. And so anything we can add to our social emotional learning, I think, will help our students be able to cope with life and manage their academics better as well. Thank you.
Just a quick question, Jill. Did they have specialized staff for that, or was it people that were already on their staff? Do they hire more people? Or?
I think they may have hired a few more people, but they do have a set of programs that all students benefit from, and then they have a set of programs that some students benefit from. So those are the more specialized with the counselors and psychologists, things like that. But I think they're mostly using their current support system. But I'm glad that you asked that, because one thing they did say was that they did have a lot of community support in funding for these programs, because the programs themselves, of course, cost money. So they did have a lot of interaction with community corporations and individuals to help fund those programs. Thank you.
hope we follow up with that a little bit. Sounds pretty interesting. So, just to add on with Jill and Neil, is of course the speakers were awesome, fun to listen to, and also on the tiny house geometry through construction. Just to add, it was a Alexandria school project, 34 students, $20,000 budget, and they're hoping to just sell the tiny home for around $20,000. Their construction teacher actually built his own and lives in his own tiny house, so that was kind of the impetus to put the program together. And the question I asked was, what are you doing? There's 68 next year. He goes, we try to build 2 of them. And so anyway, it's a really neat project up there, and one I hoped everyone saw. A couple other things. MSHSL, I went to their update. Pretty interesting. They talked mostly about transfer rules. And of course, we all know the transfer rule. Once when you're a freshman, you are where you are, unless you set out or special circumstances. And they went through those circumstances and have added a couple phases of appeal in there, which I thought was interesting. The thing, though, I thought was the most interesting is they deal with 9th through 12, but where all the transition is happening now, at least in some of the metro schools, are the 7th and 8th graders. And they had an 8th grade student last fall switch schools 3 times in the fall to, and I don't know if I want to say get where they wanted to get for their athletics, but it's the framework's changed. Also, just wanted to mention, I thought was very interesting, they spent $1.9 million last year in all of the state championship contests, and I mean the playoffs leading to. And of course, he went through that in detail, but the question was asked, how much do you guys pay for U.S. Bank for the soccer and the football finals? And I won't ask for guesses, but it's 0. Piece of legislation allows the Minnesota State High School League to use the facility 7 times at no cost. So kind of interesting. Like I said, just different things we pick up. Also spent some time with the TRA funding workshop, basically 71% funded now. They're trying to get closer to 100%, of course, talking about district and teacher contributions, and talked about some legislation that's out there. Spent a little time in a referendum or 2 workshop, and one additional area I talked to, and I think we've done it before, and I think Laura may know about it, but AmeriCorps, we do some teaching fellows, and it was really an interesting part to talk to them and find out the cost isn't very much to us, and very much like a surgeon or something that decides to do a fellowship. It's kind of neat to maybe have that on the teaching end. So that's it.
Yeah, I also attended the Minnesota School Board Association stuff. I'll echo what everyone said. The 2 speakers, keynote speakers, were awesome. They were, the first one kind of taught us, kind of try to teach us how to find our passion, which is basically try a whole bunch of things and then find out what you like. That was the take home from that. And then the other one, Manny Scott, that my take home from that was, I mean, there was so much, but basically every single district employee impacts students. You know, from the cafeteria worker to the coaches to the custodians to the teachers to the parents, like everyone impacts students. And I just thought, yeah, I think we all know that, but it's kind of just nice to be reminded of it. I also went to one of the referendum workshops, and my take home there was, and I think we're doing a good job of that, and I think we're pretty good at this in the whole and most things that we do, but just make sure that we keep the public involved, and then we keep them well informed. The other thing that I thought was very interesting is many school districts are actually reducing their number of polling places. Well, we are creating more polling places, and I think in that respect, we're doing the right thing. We're allowing more people to vote, making it easier. I think that we're doing the right thing there. So I'm kind of, I guess, proud of our district for doing the right thing, making the right decision there. And then I also went to one that was basically on immigration and police actions and school district obligations, and that was quite interesting. A lot of these are just taking in so much information. It's just so much. I'm taking like all these notes, and then there's all their notes too. But my take home there was that our district just needs to make sure that we know all the data privacy rules and everything like that, and then make sure we're following all that, because, you know, if law enforcement came, I could see. They said this, like if, you know, the first point of contact, if they asked for some student information, well, gosh, I'd want to give it to them, right? But sometimes we can't, whether it depends on if they have a warrant and all that. I just thought it was really interesting. Our policies and everything's probably pretty good, but I'd like to take a little bit of a look at that just to make sure that we're really, really clear on that. And they're basically what they said is the recommendation would be like if any law enforcement ever comes to the school, that you should have them deal with an administrator. I mean, that makes the most sense. And that would clean that up and make sure that we're doing right by the students and right by law enforcement. I just thought it was extremely interesting. Everything was extremely interesting. I think we all just learned a lot. I was like, wow. I also went on one-to-one on student constitutional rights. And holy cow, this was just like you're taking all this information, and then they're talking about cases. You're like, gosh, it's weird that one was on the side of the student and that one was on the side of the district. It's just mind-boggling interesting. I kind of geek out on all this stuff. And then one of the round tables I went to was gender identity. And then once again, it was just kind of nice to go. And it was just some nice reminders on how you can make sure everyone's comfortable at school. And I really liked it. But once again, just kind of like with the referendum thing, I think we're doing the right thing. Our district's doing pretty good. And I kind of felt that way leaving that too. So some of these sessions, you're just learning so much information. And then sometimes you're like, yeah, I think we're doing good. From what they told us, I think we're doing a good job, which is nice to feel and acknowledge and think of too. I could go on for days. I'm sure just like Neil, there's so much information, but I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. It was a great conference, and like you said, it's information overload, but I think this is my 11th time that I've gone, and those were definitely the best speakers I think we've ever had, as I think through the years. Kind of going along with flex time, I went to a presentation by Minnetonka, and it was called Reducing Student Failures via Proactive Academic Intervention. And they talked about how teachers really work to get the students involved, and I think I know our teachers do that, and but it was the key to getting students to come in was the teacher had to initiate it. And what they did is they had on Wednesdays, they had, I think it was 40 minutes in the morning, and so a teacher would pick up to 7 students that they would want to work with during that period of time to do one of two things, either to bring them more up to speed because they're behind, or the second thing is for students that want to learn more in that area. So it was really for both, because they wanted to create a culture that it was not just for those that are behind. And now they get all kinds of students saying, well, why can't I do this, or why can't I do that? So they want to be involved. So that was good. And I thought that Mandy Scott said it well. Do you believe in students before they believe? And so I think that program points definitely to that sometimes we've got to help the students believe in themselves in order to believe in themselves, or we have to believe in them before they believe in themselves. So I went to the school board team assessment and evaluation, so it may be something that we look at some point. It's completed by MSBA. It's 71 questions that you answer online anonymously, and then they will send you the results and show you where the scores are. So that may be something we should talk about. Another one was changing the perception of college and career pathways for students. Another thing that we've talked about as a board is, I think we've gone through a period of time in our society where everybody deems that they should go to college, and that's not necessarily the case, and so that was good. And finally, one that I went to, well, it was for the board chairman, but I had a couple of board members attend it with me, but it was the board chairman Q&A, and so they have no set agenda. Any questions come up, and so they try to answer them, and there was really 2 main topics. First one was TRA, and where does that go? And the second one was it was interesting because it was board members talking about challenges with their boards, and so it made me really appreciate our board, that we can agree to disagree, because a board does not necessarily need to agree at all times. You need a diverse train of thought, and so But there were some horror stories that were kind of coming up, and so I want to say thanks to this board for how they've handled themselves and how you've worked through this last year. So I think that's probably the longest school board reports we've had. So move on to Ella. You want to give us a report, please?
Is it on? No. Is it? Okay. So as Neil said, there was the story show on Saturday, and we both participated in that. This topic was invisibility, so it was just fun to see where everyone else went with that. Everyone had really nice stories. And then today, I believe there's hockey and basketball, and that's just all I really have. Oh, when you mentioned how there was the court cases, I kind of laughed because I actually had a test on that not last semester, so it was kind of funny to. I did very well. Okay, and that's all I really have to report.
Okay, thank you, Ella. Laura, this is your first time giving a teacher's report. Welcome.
Good to go? All right, perfect. All right, most of you I recognize. If not, I am Laura Wangan. I am ALE representative. I am the secretary, and I'm also 7th grade English teacher out at Southwest. I have 3 main positives. I know that with the calendar change, we got to start the 2nd semester right away this year, fresh, and it kind of gave the teachers a great mindset and gave the kids just a great, you know what, I'm starting this new year, I'm starting fresh and kind of clean slate. So I thought that was very beneficial. We experienced our first e-learning day the other day, and we're still kind of compiling data. I know at Southwest, different teams did it different ways, and speaking by behalf of, I teach in the Siberian team, and my team did it by advisory students. And I currently have, I think it's 10 out of 15 students that have handed in their data. We have a week left to get their information in, whether that's, and ours is all based off the internet, and depending on if kids had internet access, et cetera, we want to make it accessible to everyone. But we're still compiling data, and hopefully, I think it was a very positive thing. I know that with my Google Voice, I have a few students who I was iffy on them having my number, but it is through Google Voice, and so it's not my actual number. But I didn't receive any phone calls. I just received two questions via email that were very quick and easy to respond back to. And last, I know that Neil, Jill, and Ken, you guys are talking about this flex time, and I know that Southwest is implementing what we call a Tiger Plus time, which basically is essentially that flex time. They do it, well, there's advisory time throughout the week, every day, and if it's a special day or something, we will keep our kids for advisory. Otherwise, I know our team is doing it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's called Tiger Plus time, or if I need to steal a kid any other time, I sure can. But during that, I know that if a kid misses a test or needs a reteach or a retest, I can pull them in during that time, and I stamp them with my stamper, and it's quick, easy access. And I know that we ask a lot of these kids. They have 7 hours, they have tons of homework, whether it's, you know what, my room's just an open homework room, and I'm there to answer questions to the best of my ability that I'm able to. Otherwise, it's, you know what, I'm doing just a fun Kahoot. I know before Christmas I did like a Santa's Reindeer, Santa's Workshop Kahoot, where kids just had time to relax and have fun. And I know Burke, our science or our STEM teacher there, he's absolutely crazy with some of the scientific stuff he can do, and the kids his room is packed, absolutely packed. I know he said one of them was, this has nothing to do with schoolwork, but how to properly eat a donut. And he bought donuts for everyone, and he had plenty of kids in there, and they all know how to eat a donut properly now. I don't know if they were jelly-filled or not, but yes. Are there any questions?
How do you
eat a donut?
Yes, you'd have to ask Burke on that. I didn't attend. I had students in my own room.
How do you take attendance for that? Because the one that we talked to, they have an app on their phone and they check in.
And during that time, usually for advisory, I know that it's different. You hold accountability for your own classroom. I know that during advisory time, I take attendance from my own students, but during Tiger Plus time, I know that if they are stamped for a retest, I'm missing a student, I'll just send a quick email out and say, hey, I'm missing Bobby Sue. Anyone know where he is? So, and then it's quick and it's easy. Usually they're located, and we do have people with my team is spread out around the building in a sense, but kids aren't skipping as of now that we are aware of. So attendance isn't officially taken during that time. It's just a quick 25 minutes to an advisory, so it's not necessarily needed, but yes. Yep,
Thank you, Laura.
thank you.
Moving on to curriculum instruction, we've already done 8.1, so we'll move on to staff development update with Kathy and Tammy.
Are we on? So we just want to give an overview and recap and some feedback on the 2 staff development days we had coming back in January on the 2nd and the 3rd. So the first is out of the ALICE training. This is kind of our day 2. We talked about day 1 early in the year. We had 300 licensed staff spots. We knew some staff weren't attending, were out for a number of reasons. So we tried to fill every spot with our administrative support staff, so the secretary, lead secretary in every building, and then district office clericals and admin support staff. And Ashley got to go as well, and she got to wear the vest because she gets to observe, but they won't let pregnant individuals participate. But she got to. So we did have some staff who were concerned that they either had a physical disability, a little bit of anxiety about participating, and so I think we talked through pretty much everybody save for one to participate for that day. So all of these staff had participated in the e-learning module and the presentation. It's Alice's hybrid model. So, there we go. So this is the feedback. We allowed a week for staff to tell us what they thought of it, and we had 239 responses for the ALICE training. We had a few more responses for the afternoon training, which Tammy will talk about because paras were on day 2. So there were no para educators this day, 300 solid staff. Of those who responded, 93.7 chose training was valuable and I feel better prepared in the event of a school shooter. So I think that was very positive. There were about 14 staff who shared that it was interesting or it was valuable, but they didn't feel prepared. And then we gave staff the opportunity to tell us what were some positive takeaways and what were some challenges you felt about the day. Overwhelmingly, I chose, literally I have 14 pages of comments, so I tried to kind of condense and pull some of the ones that I thought really represented a wide variety of thoughts. The trainers, and we brought 3 trainers in, one from Wyoming or Montana, 2 from Montana, and then one from Ohio or Philadelphia, close. The trainers they described overwhelmingly people appreciated bringing in professionals to do this work. Knowledgeable, interesting, blunt, great, good, very knowledgeable, top-notch, amazing, a nice job of debriefing. Many staff said it was very eye-opening, it was realistic, hands-on, we were able to practice it instead of just hearing people talk about it. I think probably the best comment down at the bottom was the hardest part was seeing how far off the mark we've been all these years. Even though I knew that it was not real, sitting crouched in the corner waiting for the shooter to come into our room made me very uncomfortable and powerless. And I think overwhelmingly the next comment was they felt empowered. So then what's the next step? Lots and lots of what are we doing next? And so we're having read through all of the comments. Alice provides us with an implementation manual, which Mary Jo and I have pulled apart into about 16 sections. Admins will be looking at that that delineation of what next on Thursday. And we know first and foremost we need to start informing parents what this looks like for students. We need to train the rest of our staff in the e-learning module, so our support staff, our custodians, our kitchen staff, our substitutes. our paraeducators, our EAs. So all of that then moving forward is the next 16 steps to implement this. Clearly, staff felt that this was worthy of moving forward with, and the sooner the better. Even though there was a lot of comments about being nervous about it as well, I think overwhelmingly they are ready to move forward. So we have a letter that we've started to draft from the superintendent to send to families, talking about how to share information with families. We've purchased, I want to say about 200 of the books, the children's books that come with Teacher's Guide for the younger students. We have documentation for how to concerns with special needs students, concerns with preschool students, even daycare students, adult students in this building. So we will be moving forward over the next several months. Questions?
It's just one question. I might, for the future, it might be a good idea to consider the paras because they do work with special ed kids, and maybe those kids need a little extra explanation as to what's going on.
Yes.
Just a thought.
The paras will be trained. Actually, everybody else will be trained. The scenarios that we will probably do a little differently than we did because we won't have 2 full days, but yes, absolutely, paraeducators will be trained.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I'm really glad that we're doing this here. We were trained in Southland just a couple years back, and ever since we're trained there, I was kind of waiting to be trained here. Because, concerns about the safety of the students. I mean, and that last comment that you read there, I mean, once you get trained, you realize how grossly we've been doing it wrong all these years. And then, actually being in those situations, you realize, how powerless you are trying to hide in the corner. You're trying to find the best hiding spot in that room, and none of them are good enough. So I like the giving other options and having better options. And yeah, I'm just very happy that the district did this, and I think everyone's probably going to feel a lot better. Even my students, when we kind of finally fully implemented the Alice this year, and then we talked through it again, and we had our first one that we actually left the building. And I think they even feel in the practice and more empowered. I mean, still, there's a lot of anxiety whenever you have a lockdown practice drill or anything. But I think it just gives you a little bit of power in a horrible situation if it were to come. But even just knowing that if this were to ever happen, there is some control, there's some power there, instead of just being in a corner in a room. So.
And I was asked if law enforcement was involved, and Ted has been trained as a trainer, and he also clued in the county and the city and EMS that we were training that day. And actually, we talked today about some of the recommendations and kind of where we are with that. So law enforcement continues to be involved.
So one of the challenges that we face on a daily basis anymore is students that are coming to us with a lot of baggage, a lot of mental health issues. And so as teachers, we're struggling with how to deal with that in the school setting. And so we were able to get Danielle Teese to come and do a training with our staff. Danielle is actually the principal for the New Dominion School at Girard. She's a psychotherapist. She has a lot of training in mental health and dealing with students at risk. And so the first part of the day was her explaining the foundations of students in trauma and just why they do the things they do, and understanding their brain and some of the things that their behaviors are displaying to us. We may think one thing, but they're actually frustrated and they're just spouting out their behavior. So she just had a really nice background in training us on how to deal with those students. And then in the afternoon, we talked about how we might be able to set up our classrooms in a different way, some of the strategies that we can use in dealing with these students. And some of the nice things we saw here was the fact that we had some paras and teachers that worked together that were already planning on how they were going to change their classroom in the following days to try to help some of these students. You want to click the next one? This is just some of the comments that we got back about the training. Just knowing where the students come from, learning about the limbic system was an eye-opener. She talked a lot about brain development and how, for example, males, don't reach the front part, the front lobal part of their brain until they're 26, and so that's why sometimes they're acting the way they are, unfortunately. And women, it's age 23. So some of those were some of the comments that they came back with. And then there was a couple responses that they thought it was too long. What?
She's cutting us off, I think.
You talked longer than me. And then how to get other colleagues to buy in and understand this impact. I think a lot of times special ed staff feel like the general ed teachers don't always understand this, but I think this was very helpful. The whole high school staff came, and the whole, one of the elementaries, all of Lakeview staff came, and then it was sporadic with other members of the other buildings, because some of them had other things already planned for their buildings. So I think it was a nice refresher. It was a good learning curve for a lot of teachers, and it just gave us some nice ideas on how to deal with our students. Any questions?
Maybe it's a comment. I know one of the biggest frustrations that I had as a teacher was not knowing what kind of baggage
Exactly.
kids had when they came into my classroom. It seemed obvious to me that some of them must have some issues that were affecting their performance, but I felt limited in my ability to discover what their world involved that was making things so difficult for them. And I think probably some of the fault there laid with me, because I just didn't have skills in investigating that sort of thing. But I think that if we had some machinery in place so staff could be informed of what kind of issues their students are having, that'd be very helpful.
And our teaching programs in the universities don't teach about this, so it's kind of learning on the job as we go.
So was this for all staff then, or just special ed staff?
It was actually for all staff. Anyone was invited who wanted to come. Great. Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much for your presentation. It's great to see that staff development. Moving on to Safe and Healthy Schools, Inside Out Initiative, Why We Play presentation, Afton.
She's dual role.
All right, thanks for having us. Obviously, I'm here with three outstanding coaches and educators that we have in our district, and this is a great time and opportunity for us to be able to share with you some of the education that not only do our educators in the classroom get, but also our coaches. And this is new. This is a Minnesota State High School League initiative. About 3-4 years ago, all of our coaches have to go through training annually on why we play, and that focuses basically playing beyond the scoreboard. And the State High School League this year has implemented this new initiative to take it even a few steps further. They know and they understand that the roles of coaches, the roles of activities directors are having a lot lower career expectancies because of the challenges and the demands that are put on the job. And they are targeting and feeling that the education that they are providing to coaches and activities directors just hasn't been there. So this is their opportunity to really pull in member schools and to give us the opportunity to have further education so that we can not only take to our staff, our students, but the biggest part is to our community. Do I have the clicker? You do that. There we go. There we go. Awesome. First thing that I just want to touch on is I want to be really brief because I think it's more important that you hear from our coaches today. The biggest thing, though, that I want to start you with is for you to just take a second to think about who the most influential coach in your life is. Some of you may not have played athletics, but there's been somebody in your life, whether that be other activities, fine arts, and athletics, someone that's been influential in your life, and now why? We ask our students about this too, is that, think back of those coaches that you had in youth or the beginning of your high school career, and what pulls them out as being important and influential. And I think that automatically, immediately, we think of coaches and we think of wins and losses. And we're not hearing that from our students. We're hearing about the leadership that their coaches have put into their lives. We're hearing about how they made them feel. And I think that's just really important for us as we go forward, and you are hearing about the initiative that our coaches are learning and implementing with their coaching staffs and with their students, is that it's not always about the wins and losses. It's really about what they're taking from them and the things that they are giving to our students. And we talk about the need for that connectedness of our students. And that comes with athletics, that comes with activities and fine arts, and all of that is really important. There we go. So again, the biggest thing is we are hardwired to connect, is that education-based athletics can and should provide students with meaningful connections. And that's really what this initiative is focusing on, is what are our coaches providing to our students beyond the skills and the development of the game that they are teaching them as well. The Inside Out initiative is really focusing on character. And I think that the biggest myth out there is that sports or activities are what truly build character. The truth is that our coaches are the ones who are building character in our students. Sports are kind of the pathway. Coaches are able to use that pathway of athletics, of activities, to be able to teach our students what true character is and the things that we want them to truly take away from the experiences that they are involved in. Just really quickly, this initiative is first and foremost focusing on the education and the coaching of character of myself, of our coaching staff, and then what we do from there. Character development is of high value, and it's the most important impact that we as ADs and coaches can have on our students. Our coaches will be better people, they'll be better spouses, they'll be better employees and citizens. They're going to learn to care for each other. And that's the biggest thing that we're taking from this group. Our head coaches meetings that we are implementing this education is we are a team, and that hasn't always been there. And this is what we're really focusing on, because we want consistency between programs, and that's from one season to another, so that our students have that consistent expectation from season to season. This is going to show our coaches that we care as a community. We care about them and what they do for our students, and then obviously what they can do for our students on the field. Coaches with moral character will improve the entire school community, and I think that's just the most important thing that we can really focus on. The true importance of the Inside Out initiative is to really lead coaches on how we want them to be. A transactional coach, that is someone who is motivated by self-interest. That their self is at first and foremost in their priorities. What we're really striving for is our transformational coaches. Those that are motivated by social, moral, educational values. Our students come first, and a team comes second, and then it's the coach. And the coach is going to meet those needs for our students. This is just a few of the things that we're starting to focus on, is that we need to dig deep, and we need to look at what's missing within our athletic department and our activities department. We need to look for what changes need to occur. We need to look then what's our vision as a team of head coaches. What do we envision our students getting out of this educational experience through athletics? The first steps is, what do we need to do? How do we need to implement this? And honestly, this right here is our first steps, is getting this information out to our school board, because we do know that we need your support. We need to have a common language as we go forward, because we know that the world of athletics, not only youth athletics, but high school athletics and college and professional athletics, has taken a huge change, and it looks very different now. We know that there's going to be resistance. Change is always hard. And so this is the thing, again, that we're seeking support. And we want to make sure we get this information and the education out to others so that we can be at this together for what's best for our students. As you can see, the purpose and the value of this program entails a lot of people. It's not us. It carries on. We need you as a school board, our superintendent, our principals, obviously our athletic administration, coaches, student athletes, parents, and the biggest thing is the community. We're a school community, and we are a big community together, and it will take all of us to do this. Just briefly, this is one of our things that we've really focused on the most here, is really defining what goals we have. Goals are a result, And we all have goals. As coaches, we're so apt to get our students on board of, what do we have goals for this season? Goals are a result, though. And we prepare, we plan, we play to win, but winning is not our purpose. And we're truly focusing on now getting our purpose in line, our goals in line with our purpose. A purpose is the reason why we exist. Why do we do what we do? Why do we coach? Why do we play? Why do we teach? Why are you guys school board members? And that's really focusing on, what is our purpose? What do we plan to do to carry on through? There's no end to a purpose. Goals, they start and they end, but a purpose truly is going to carry you through. Goals have a beginning and an end. Purpose doesn't. The purpose is what we live for. Tony Dungy is a great reference. He has some great books that those are things that we can, start diving into as well. Last but not least, if we aren't aware of our purpose, if our goals aren't in line with our purpose, then winning becomes the purpose, and often at all cost. And this is truly what we as head coaches, athletic administrators, we are trying to focus on is, how do we carry athletics to regain that educational-based base. We need to make sure we regain that focus, we reclaim that education that's found in high school athletics. So I am privileged to be able to have 3 of our coaches here. I want them to be able to just give you kind of a recap of things that they've learned, what they're doing with their programs, for you guys to see kind of a different side of things, because we don't always get to see our coaches and what they do. Besides if we go to an event and we watch them, and we know how sometimes that can be driven on what a score looks like. And so we want them to see what they're doing in the insides of their programs to really start focusing and going in a direction of reclaiming our purpose. You want to go first, Kevin?
Sure. I know most of you, but sorry about my voice. The Minnesota Miracle kind of got the best of me on Sunday night. So I came here in 2008, been the head track and field coach since 2010. I teach mathematics. I'm a link crew coordinator for the past 9 years as well, and very active in our school. When I started coaching, a lot of me wanted to generate the same type of experiences I had in high school as part of 3 very successful programs. I wanted to bring some of that same energy and passion to the students and athletes that I was able to work with. When I began coaching, I soon realized that it was just as important to develop the moral character and the mental fortitude of students and athletes as it was to develop the skills. And that human development is at the center of what we do each and every day. That really changed the way that we started to frame what does it look like to be successful in terms of just wins and losses to learning to control what we could control. You get an athlete out there who's 5 foot nothing and wants to run the mile, and you can't scream at them until they finally break 5 minutes. And what you celebrate is the goals that you set, the work ethic, the commitment, the perseverance, the type of role models that they are. You can't control the height. You can't control the weather. You can't control the referees. There's so many things that are sitting outside of your control. But as you begin to evaluate, was it a successful day or was it not? How did we improve? How do we get better? Things start to change. It's very challenging as a coach when you're faced with, hey, let's admit it. I've had many years where I've had some very, very excellent athletes. They didn't work very hard. They weren't very committed, but they had some pretty good genetics. And I've had other years that had some just super hard-working athletes who were very dedicated, caring for one another, but maybe didn't have the performances that the others had. Which are the life-lasting traits that we want to put forward? This changed the way that we do some things in track and field. My purpose statement is I coach in order to develop moral courage, service, perseverance, work ethic in young people that they may become better human beings and all-around athletes. And so instead of 3 captains during the course of the year, which were generally the 3 best athletes, we select 10 team leaders that are from sophomores to seniors. And they develop their purpose statement for why they play. And if their purpose statement is I play in order to win, we need to dig deeper than that. We talk about role modeling for younger kids. We talk about the role models that they had that made them want to do better within school, within sports as well. We talk about those pieces, and those individuals establish that leadership as we move forward. I just want to give you one picture of what this looks like when it plays out. We had a young man on our team, just an exceptional individual, experience kind of a tough injury. And so sometimes in track and field, the workouts get modified to certain degrees. Well, this sophomore or junior as he was, all of a sudden finds himself with some 7th or 8th or 9th graders, by his side. And sometimes in track and field, people end up in different spaces. But for me to be able to stand off in a distance and see that junior or senior take those 6, 7 kids under his wing, lead them through all the activities, lead them through the drills, work towards the stretching, work towards the rehabilitation until they are ready to get through the normal workouts throughout the course of the week. I saw what that individual was giving to the younger kids, and I saw how that individual was growing to become more assertive and a better leader. And I think that that's more of an accomplishment than some of the other things we may see in terms of time. And so that was a very beautiful thing to see. I also want you to know these things we talk about. Ella's here. Ella's your homework done? Math, there you go. All right. I think Ella can attest, I've had Ella for 2 years, that this is what we talk about in the classroom as well. I hope that the development of STAR qualities and what will make us successful human beings moving forward, that's at the forefront of the classroom piece as well. And I know they'll exist with the coaches. Without a doubt, this is something we try to maintain all the way through consistently. If I didn't say that correctly, then make sure you correct me after I'm done. So.
Hello all. I'm Corey Black. I'm currently a science teacher and the head football coach. What I handed out to you today is just kind of just a little insight on kind of how I've built the purpose statements into the football program, and have kind of pushed this initiative for us to be able to improve as a football team, and not only that, but like as a school culture as a whole. But I really think that the key to this whole initiative is that it pushes one to excel and chase improvement instead of just victory. I think that a lot of times now kids really get caught up into the social media age of looking at the people who make the most money, have the fanciest clothes, and drive the fanciest cars, instead of really looking into the process that it took those people to get into those positions. And I really think that, through this whole program, that we are really building a culture within a team that is much greater in identified value than pursuing victory. I think that we're really building much more character skills and these more moral skills as well, that build better community members as a whole. And I really felt that it was important to communicate my vision not only to the football community, but to my coaches as well. And so it started out in June, I believe, that me and my entire coaching staff from 6th grade to 12th grade sat down and we developed our purpose statement. And it was a very hard process. It took us about an hour to finally nail down into what we needed it to be. But I think that it was a very good thing for us, a very good process for us to undergo, because it allowed us to kind of come together and unify under one, creed, and really have one purpose on what we are trying to do and facilitate through the Albert Lea High School football program. And so the purpose statement that we came up with was Albert Lea football looks to create young men of high character who work hard and exhibit the values of perseverance, honesty, integrity, and look to lead at every opportunity. And I think that it really kind of personifies everything that we do. Everything that we do as a program connects back to this purpose statement. The Saturday morning film sessions that we have tied on with study sessions ties back to us, working hard. The honesty and integrity piece comes back to them being good community members and being able to, represent not only the football team but the community as a whole in a positive manner. We then had each coach write their own purpose statement on why they coach football, to be able to connect back and have something that they can connect with every day on why they do it. And that was actually a pretty interesting thing to see, just the vast differences between, you know, coaches and why they coach. And I think it was really kind of another thing that brought our coaching staff even closer together for us to be able to connect on some of those issues that may be not talked about as frequently as they need to be. Then at the first practice, we had the coaches share their purpose statements. And the thing that I really liked about that too is it allowed us to connect with the students on more than just a football basis. I think a lot of times that coaches get these relationships with these kids, and they think it's very much a transactional relationship where you play football for me, that's all I care about, that's all I want you to do. That's what we talk about, and that's where it ends. And us allowing the students to understand what our purpose was really allowed them to connect with us and know that we had their backs, and we wanted to enrich their lives more than just on the football field. But it also let them know that, like, their errors that occurred on the football field for us were left on the field. That when we left the field, that we had other initiatives that we were trying to promote from within our program as well. From there, we then had all the players on the team write their own purpose. So every 9th through 12th grader who played football this fall wrote a purpose statement, and then we hung them up on their lockers as well, so that every day when we came in, we were constantly connecting with our purpose to be able to make sure that we were kind of focusing in on our efforts and being very intentional in what we wanted to do that day. And just another thing that I've adapted kind of from some other research and some things within, like, the leadership process has been the idea of these what went well journals. So if you look on the back, there's kind of an outline about what I call a what went well journal. And this is really just a tool that we use to have a positive mindset and push continual improvement from the first practice until the last. So literally every day after practice, students would write down 15 things that went well that day. So, like, anything from they got an A on Mr. Gentz's math test to the cute girl that walked by him in the hall actually looked at him. Those things can be written down. And really what it does is it focuses us on the idea that football is it's a very small portion of our life, and it really kind of minimizes the importance and lets us know that, you know, good things actually happen to us even if they aren't the good things that we desire for them to be. And I think that's really a really important kind of mindset to do, or mindset to have. As we kind of look forward then, or go forward to they write down two areas for growth, or two things that they need to improve on, and then 3 things that they learned that day. And I think that's really where the self-reflection kind of comes back, because the next day when they open up their what went well journal before we go to practice, they're constantly looking over those things that went well the previous day. They're looking at the things that they need to work on in the areas for growth, and the things that they learned that day as well, so that they can kind of have a little bit of a refresher before they go out to practice. And I tell them to run, spread right green, 471, rule patriot, all this crazy stuff that confuses the heck out of everybody, right? That being said, though, I think that what it really does is it puts us in a much more process mindset than an outcome mindset. And I think it really teaches them that, in order for them to, make a good tackle on the football team, or on the football field, they need to, read their keys, they need to drive their feet, they need to keep their head up. But it also teaches them that when they go into the school and they go to take the ACT test at the end of their junior year, and they want that score of a 26, that they have to, read and write more every single day, that they have to ask more questions during their math class, and that they have to prepare for the test before the test day in order to get the outcome that they want. And I think that's kind of really what we want these, student athletes to learn, through their participation in athletics. So, thank you.
Hi again, Laura Wangan. I am the head girls soccer coach. That was my second year of doing that. I was head hockey coach a few years back, and intermixing, I've been a part of coaching 12, 13 seasons, so my plate's pretty full. With that being said, I know that when I started back in 2010 with hockey and soccer both assistant coach, but we didn't have the culture of these head coaches meeting together. I was literally, it was just myself and the hockey coaches, myself and the soccer coaches as one individual unit. So it's not fun waking up, having early morning meetings before I go with my pleasant 7th graders all day, but it's so beneficial, and I leave those meetings very, very positive and feeling very good about the sports culture that we are creating first and foremost as head coaches, and then it goes on to our students. I know Ella, once again I'm going to reference you. Ella was one of my soccer athletes this year, and we were 7 and 8 on the season, so when it comes to having a winning season, we didn't, but it was sure a heck of a lot of fun, and I know we learned from our losses. It's not, losing isn't always a bad thing, even though it's not in my vocabulary most days. I grew up here in town playing sports. I'm a 3-sport athlete every single year. For instance, even soccer I was varsity 7th through my senior year, and I don't know how many coaches I went through. There was a handful, but with change of coaches, change of culture, there were different expectations all the time, but I feel like the inside out coaching is really establishing a positive base for everyone to follow through on.
So I guess we thank you for letting us talk. It may have been a little long, we apologize, but I think this is just a great opportunity that we don't always get. And like I said, with the Inside Out initiative, that is one of the struggles that we've had as a team is how do we implement this? How do we get it out? You are our first ones, and we want you to ask questions. We want you to be there to support us. We know that, again, with change, it can be hard. And I think one of the things that we talked about that will hit people a little bit deep is, are they not wanting to win? Because I think I'm hearing that, is that we're not wanting to win, but we're wanting to teach our kids life lessons. None of us are here not to win. And I think that we can promise you that. But we also know, though, that to be able to have those successes that come on a scoreboard is that we need to do those little things right. And this initiative is really that focus. And it's building these deep relationships and the connections that we have with our students, creating expectations. And like Coach said, is we're not outcome-based. We're really going to be based on our relationships and what we take from here, because we know that 99% of our students, their sports career will end here. But we know that they have so much life to live after this, and so many of these opportunities, these educational opportunities from athletics, will help them become better citizens in our community and other communities. So again, we just thank you for this opportunity. We ask that you ask us questions. We're very happy to answer those. I know that we have a slim group here. It's a Tuesday night, which is unfortunate because we have a lot of events going on and we have a lot of coaches that are out in action. But this group, we need to be proud of these guys. We have some great coaches. We're young, but they are driven. They're great educators, and they truly care about our students. And so I'm happy that you got to hear from them today. Get out there, support them, and again, have fun at our events. And that's really what we want to get out of it, is seeing our students learning from these opportunities. So thank you.
So can I answer your question?
Absolutely.
First of all, it's a great program. Think back to one of my coaches way back. I don't think they taught this type of thing, but it's great to see it. But one question I have would be, so you talk to the students, does it get back to the parents?
Yeah. And I would say that's probably our biggest struggle. We know sometimes that the avenues that we can connect with, we may not be able to reach that far. Coach Black, some of our other coaches, we do take our preseason parent meetings as a large opportunities that we know those parents are going to be there then. Coach was able to share his purpose statement. Other coaches, share that time to really reflect on those things, because during the season that can be lost and there's not a lot of opportunities. But parent meetings are our time to really connect with our parents, to show our expectations, show us what the true meaning of why our coaches are doing what they're doing for their students, so everyone is on the same page. But I will say that's probably our biggest challenge, is to be able to get this drive and this initiative and our true purpose out to everyone.
And those are the things that we will be doing as a group when we meet each month. Yes, I know very early mornings, but I do bring food, so hopefully that makes up for it. Is that those are the types of approaches that we need to now get out, whether we go present at service clubs and things like that. But we need community support. We need to bring that back and make it exciting for our whole community to come and be involved in our athletic programs and activities, not just athletics.
I'd just like to add, in my 8 years on the board, we've had some coaching personnel issues, some public, some not public, but I'm just so happy to see the three of you up here and so proud that you represent our district. I know, Kevin, you had both my daughters in math, and that's a different subject, but you had my older daughter in track, and I still remember somehow you were assistant coaching with the girls, but she came home one night and said she had met you, and in the end it was that you cared about her. I still remember she told me that, and then my other daughter, who's also played soccer, if I had a daughter now that played soccer, I'd want her to be like Laura Hillman, not maybe as good a soccer player, or Wangan, maybe not as good a soccer player, but as good as a person. And I think that's what you're coaching, is people. And so I just want to thank you for what you've just said and what you're doing, and if we can help or if I can help, let me know.
Also, just wanted to mention too that the best way to build a home, to build a relationship, to build a team, or to build an individual is always a strong foundation. If you get that strong foundation and something like this inside-out coaching, which again we talked at the MSBA conference up there, is what's going to build an everlasting strong program. And it's from the strong program too many people look at from the outside in instead of from the inside out. So I really like this initiative. And again, maybe it takes some good young people that are really open-minded. Thanks.
Can I make one last comment? I love my job, okay? And I've said this to students. I mean, I love Albert Lee. I live in Owatonna, but I love being here. I want to be here for 30 more years. As much as I love my job and everything I do, it's more important for me to be a father and a husband. But when we coach, even more than when we teach sometimes, that's sometimes the glimpse of what kids see. What is it going to be like to be a father someday? What is it going to be like to be a husband someday? I mean, where do we start to learn our social norms for how we care for one another and for how we're going to parent and how we're going to look out for each other? It's no longer a situation where we're simply coaching X's and O's. We understand that coaching community. We represent what we want to see as the best social norms in our society moving forward. It's even more pronounced now than I think it's ever been. And so I think that's something that we share. So thank you guys for your time.
Just add one other comment. I totally subscribe to everything you've said. In fact, I've started preaching this sermon about 40 years ago. The distinction between purpose and goals, and winning is a goal. And winning is collateral. If you achieve your purpose, winning will take care of itself. That's always been my approach. And quite frankly, I don't remember if we were conference champions last year or not. I honestly don't. It doesn't matter. But I do remember the integrity that we presented to the public, hopefully, and the appearance that we presented to the public, hopefully. And winning is a goal. It's not a purpose.
And I think it's great as well. It seems to go along with the social, emotional aspect that we are considering district-wide, and like you were saying, the modeling that's being done, and the positive mindsets, the perseverance, the realization that mistakes happen, but that's okay, find a way through it. They all translate into the classroom as well, and that's how we can experience growth and just prosperity, I guess, in different areas of life. And it isn't just that final test result that we get, but it is the process of the journey. So thank you for what you're doing.
I want to thank you one step further because as I look at the challenges that we have today, not in just Albert Lea, but in our society, is that we often have a lot of single-parent families. And so I think there's someone that you can look up to because of the examples that you have here to say, you know, maybe there is another way to be in life. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Next, we have an application for review and comment for Hammerfield Halverson Gym addition and high school upgrades. Lori.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Superintendent Funk, what I'm bringing for recommendation for approval is the blessing the application approval so we can proceed with the compiling the information that's needed for the Minnesota Department of Education for us to submit what's called application for review and comment. This is a process required when you have a large construction project such as what we're considering for the Hammerfield update, Halverson Gym addition, and the other high school upgrades. And so I just need the board's approval for us to proceed with collecting the information and submitting it to MDE.
So this is not a vote for the project, this is just gathering information. Can you explain that just a little bit further, please?
So basically, this is just a step needed. MDE must review the project scope. It has to be done, it's a separate step, separate totally from the board approving the resolution. So basically what we have to do is we have to submit application for review and comment. It's a separate step, and it has to happen before the approval of the resolution based on our timeline. So it's just the initial step. Submission doesn't mean, I mean, obviously the board has to approve the resolution in order to truly proceed. So it's just the initial step to get the project rolling along, I guess you could say.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the recommendation.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of submitting the application for review and comment on Haverfield and the Halverson Gym and high school upgrades signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Last item of business is a special school board meeting, and I think because of sports that would need to be changed to 6:30. That would be on January 23rd. The purpose of the meeting is to just gather more, to present the potential project and to also get feedback from the public. And so this would, because it is a special board meeting, all board members could attend, and the public would be notified with various forms, including the paper, and I think our website and so on. And so we want to make this more of a, I think at this point we've got just a small vision of what our community might want. I mean, we've had our survey, and we've had 2 meetings with some groups, but I think this is our time when we need to go more to the public, so that we get that information out. We need to know is this something that we just want, or is it something that the public wants? And so I think that meeting would give us the opportunity. So I just present that for the board to do as you wish.
Does this require action?
Yeah.
So moved.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? 6:30, yep.
And you'll be receiving public input at the
Yes.
meeting, and you'll have either a time frame or a time limit per individual?
Yeah, my thought is that we would present the information, because there's been very few that have seen it at this point. We'd present the information, and then we would have public input. So we would do it at the auditorium, and we would have a microphone there so that we could receive that feedback. So, and I think from that, then we can have clear direction and make a decision whether or not to move forward.
Just to illustrate how dedicated I am to this task, it is on that night that Albert Lee is wrestling Otana. And I will be at the meeting.
I don't know if we have anybody else there now that we've rescheduled that. Good.
Okay, we certainly encourage everyone to invite others. I think we want to, I'd love to have a lot of people there because I think public input is very, very important in helping us in our decisions. So please make sure we get the word out in as many places as we can. And so any other discussion? Okay, we'll call the question then. All those in favor of the motion to hold the meeting on January 23rd at 6:30, signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn then. Is there a second? Second. Meeting is adjourned.